Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer Andrews, and I am the Director of Early Childhood Strategies for Chattanooga 2.0. Today, I am going to be talking to you about brain basics and how that impacts kindergarten readiness and what you can do as a parent to further uh, prepare your children to be ready to start kindergarten. So to start, to explain to you a little bit about how we got here. So Chattanooga 2.0, the organization that I work for, is a collaborative of Hamilton County. So it's a bunch of organizations who come together, community, business, nonprofit, government, to do what no entity can do alone, which is to ensure the success of every child from birth to career. My joy is that I get to work in the early childhood space. So a lot of what we do is convening partners, aligning them along that kind of birth to career pipeline. So early childhood, literacy, K-12, college, post-secondary, and on to the attainment of a thriving wage. So what we're trying to do is create a lot of proof points about what works in Hamilton County. And so part of that is managing strategies. And one of those strategies for Hamilton County is kindergarten readiness. But first, I wanted to share with you all a little bit about my why. So my why is these two little boys right here. So I started with Chattanooga 2.0 6 years ago, and I started working as the program assistant because I wanted to help make schools better. And it wasn't until I started working with the Early Matters Action Team and the local early childhood experts that I began to understand what a large role the early childhood space plays in getting kids ready for kindergarten and how important kindergarten readiness is to future academic and life success. So since starting with Chattanooga 2.0 and working with the Early Matters experts, I've had two beautiful little boys right here who are baby geniuses because I was able to implement in their upbringing what I was learning from all of the experts. And so my why is being able to share that information with other parents of Hamilton County, because I know I would have had no idea if they hadn't been telling me. So to start, I'm going to talk a little bit about brain basics. So the earliest years of life can set the stage for lifelong physical and mental health and academic success. Children thrive when they're cared for by responsive and sensitive adults, and they participate in regular stimulating early learning experiences, whether that is in a childcare setting or whether it's at home with you or grandma or an aunt, uncle, or a neighbor, and then when they enjoy healthy food and active play. You can see here on the screen that children's brains grow to 90% of their adult size by the age of 5, which is wild. If you already have a 5-year-old, or look at any of the 5-year-olds you know and think that their brain is almost fully grown. And so it is developing most rapidly in those early years. I love this quote and I'll explain to you all a little bit about how we came to the kindergarten ready skills list. But one of the things we did in the beginning was a lot of research. And I love this quote that talks about how important it is to start early with just kind of making those brain connections for kids. So kindergarten readiness matters because in a study of ethnically diverse low-income families across the board, more than 2,000 of them, a child's early learning environment, whether it was a parent or in a childcare setting, predicted their academic skills in 5th grade. And kids who were ready for school by age 5 had a better chance of reaching the middle class by the time they were 40. And they say that the reason that is because skills build on skills, increasing in strength as they go. So and what that means is that if your 1-year-old is, looking like they're figuring out, something simple like they can roll a ball down a ramp, and you notice that they can do that and you build on that. And like once they learn a skill, they don't forget it. It's kind of like riding a bike and they just get better and better and they learn more and more new things. So the earlier you start, the better. And that's not just things like language and math. That's also skills that employers look for in adults, things that we hope for in our, our social relationships, focus and attention, planning and organization. These are all things that we think about adults having, but they're actually beginning to be developed in the brains of young children under the age of 5. Working memory and metacognition, persistence and taking initiative, flexibility and problem solving, inhibition and emotion control. Your boss tells you that you can't do something and you don't just immediately scream at them. Things that we know our young children are doing, but it's the role of the adults in their lives, the caregivers, to help them figure out how to work through feelings, and kind of master that focus and attention in a developmentally appropriate way. So you all will hear from the City of Chattanooga's Office of Early Learning about the Chattanooga Basics throughout. It's you can talk to them about. There's a website, ChattanoogaBasics.org, and you'll learn more about it by going there. And there's videos, but I'm going to share a brief overview because I think that even if you have a child who is already 3 or 4, and the basics are geared towards children who are 0 to 3, I think that the tools and the lessons kind of extend on into elementary school as you have a developing child. So I'm going to go over these. There are 5 basics with the Chattanooga Basics. You've got maximize, love, and manage stress, talk, sing, and point, count, group, and compare, explore through movement and play, and read and discuss stories. And the basics, again, you can learn more about them online, but they were started in Boston and then brought to Chattanooga in association with the Boston Basics, and they're all over. The basics are being used all over the world now, but it's the 5 most simple things that any adult can do with a child to help build their brain. And we have this graph, and I'll show it again at the end of my talk, that shows within the basics, maximize, love, manage stress, talk, sing, and point, count, group, and compare. Depending on how old your child is, there are really simple things that you can be doing. Parents are so busy. I know, I am a working parent. And you just don't have time necessarily. It's not at the top of your mind to think about doing some brain building activities with your kid. And the good news is most of the time you can do it en route to and from your job or church. You can do it on the bus. You can do it taking a walk. You can do it at bedtime. There's simple activities that are meant to be, brain building opportunities during your normal daily routine. So the 3 and 4-year-old and 5-year-old basics at the bottom, activities that you can do with your child, those actually are in alignment with the kindergarten ready skills that I'm going to show to you in just a minute. So maximize, love, and manage stress is basically where you are loving your children, and that allows them, you are helping them manage stress in that way. And the big takeaway here is they say, a flight attendant says to put on your oxygen mask first before you can assist others. And we have to be sure that we're taking care of ourselves and that we're taking care of our own emotional needs and our mental health in order to best take care of our young ones. I know if I've had a really stressful day at work, it's really hard to then turn around and listen to a whining toddler. Love my children, but we have to remember to breathe and use some of those skills. The way that you can maximize love and manage stress in children, these activities as I go through them are kind of ranked a little bit for young children all the way to older kids. So hugging, cuddling, snuggling, comforting infants when they're upset, giving them a routine so that they know what to expect, encouraging them, if they're being brave in their own little way and trying something, encouraging them, involving them in what you're doing. So that's one of the older kids' skills. If you're making dinner, involve them in what you're doing, describe for them kind of what you're doing, offer them choices, and then setting limits. Kids feel safe when they have boundaries. So the second one is talk, sing, and point. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but talk about the world. So your job as a parent is as simple as narrating the world to the baby because they've never been here before. So you like mommy's cooking, this is a pot, the stove is hot, and pointing when you talk. So for young children, as they're learning to talk, pointing to something rather than just saying, look at the dog. They have no idea what you are referring to because they've never heard of a dog. But if you point to the thing and say dog, look at the dog, it's more likely to stick in their memory. You can also sing songs, act out words, listen and respond. So there's something called serve and return, which is where your baby says something or your 4-year-old says something, and then you respond. For a baby, that could be cooing back and forth. And for a 4-year-old, because I have a 4-year-old, the talking doesn't stop. But listening as you can, and asking them questions back, getting them to think about things. Like, why do you think that happened? Or when they ask you a question, you can answer it, but also, mommy, why does the car make that sound? I don't know. Why do you think the car makes that sound? But asking questions about what do you think will happen next in a story is also helpful. The third one is count, group, and compare. And that's really the key precursor to the math skills that kids will need in kindergarten. So a lot of people say, I'm not a math person. I probably would have said that about myself. But I think the point is each child is born to be a math person, and even babies can do simple math. So noticing things, and a toddler will tell you that they know math because they know very quickly if you have more of the candy than they do. So they love learning math concepts such as game, comparing shapes and sizes. What shape is the orange? Can you point to the square? Music is actually a really great way to teach math skills because of the rhythm and the beat that they have to keep with music. You can count your toys, name your colors, sort and match. I love having my kids help me with the laundry. Now that they're a little bit older, and even when they were toddlers, can you put all the socks together? Can you match the shirts that are the same color? Calling out patterns when you see them, and using math language is a really big one for kids. So which one of your brother and your sister, which one of you is taller, which one of you is shorter, which of these plates is bigger, which one is smaller, better, best. So using comparative language is actually, it's something that you can easily do while you're going about your day, multitasking, and but it's actually building math skills in your kiddos' brains. The fourth one, explore through movement and play. If you have young children, then you know that they like to move, get up and move around. And there's a bunch of different kinds of play. So there's imaginative play, pretend play, creative activities such as drawing, games that you play with your kids, physical play such as rolling the ball, or even having just a dance party after dinner to get some movement out. Movement and play are good for children's bodies and brains, and keep children healthy. And that also is helping build the coordination and skills, balancing skills that kids need for their development. And then children also explore and learn about the world through movement and play. So they're learning about the world. And a fun activity that you can do is ask your kiddo to, some of these are really great and they're more of a parental tool. I think when you're at the grocery store and your child is, trying to grab everything off the shelf, and you're like, and rather than just yelling at them to be good, which I know is often my go-to, what I would like to do, some of the tips and tools you can keep in your tool belt there are, hey, can you stand on one foot and count to 10? You're engaging two parts of their brain, and while you're loading things onto the belt, they are like, oh, okay, I can do that. And you say, can you turn around 3 times and then turn around backwards 3 times? Hey, can you point out for me the things that are blue, the things that are pink? What can you find something in here that's a circle? But you can do movement and play, things like that, no matter where you are. if you're in the doctor's office is another example of anytime you have to wait, which is really hard for kids, the Chattanooga Basics activities are great things to pull out to keep them occupied. The fifth one is to read and discuss stories starting at birth, even reading to kids while they're in the womb. Babies enjoy it and they benefit from it because they're hearing your voice and the cadence of the words that you're saying. There's a famous video of a dad who is watching a baseball game with his child who is not speaking full words yet. And the baby's like, blah, 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 and pointing to the TV. And the dad's like, I know, right? Isn't that crazy? And the baby says, and the baby continues, and they go back and forth. And again, that's that serve and return part of conversation. Reading is also great because it expands children's knowledge and context of the world. So when they get into upper grades, the more words that you can share with your child, the more narration that you have done of the world and explain to them all of the fruits and on your commute to school and to work and to church and to the park, if you're pointing out things and saying like, think to yourself, I wonder if my kid knows what a blueberry bush looks like, or what a bluebird is. And so pointing out things in the natural environment and talking to them. But books are a great way to expand a child's contextual knowledge of the world so that when they get to school and they begin having to read on their own and have to take those sometimes super hard tests, they say, oh, hey, I read about this before in another book at home with mom and dad or grandma. So you can read stories. If you have a child under 5, I hope you've signed up for Dolly Parton Imagination Library because thanks to Signal Centers locally, that is a book is mailed to your child every day from the moment that you sign up for it until they turn 5. And there are a variety of books, and they have questions on the inside flap that if you want to practice with your kid, what do you think? Look at the cover. What do you see? How do you think this child was feeling in the book when this happened? And and if it's not an imagination library book, you can still ask questions about any book that you have. Asking questions about stories. Why do you think the boy is sad? What do you think is going to happen next? Or even pointing to the book, you've read the words on the page, but then pointing to something in the picture and saying, do you know what that is? Or what is the dog doing? Oh, he's splashing through the puddle. That's right. Good job. And then having another way to read and discuss stories is to have your child draw a picture and tell their own story. Depending on the age of your child, it might not be something discernible to you as to what they drew on the page. But being able to color something and then tell you about it is actually a really great early literacy skill. So now I'm going to talk to you about the kindergarten ready skills that the community has agreed upon, including childcare and Hamilton County schools. But first, here is a video to talk to you about kindergarten readiness.
Any kindergarten teacher can tell you, children do not start school with the same language and literacy skills. On day 1 of kindergarten, there is a 5-year range. Out of every 10 children, 2 enter kindergarten with language and literacy skills 2 to 3 years below grade level, 2 enter 1 year behind, and 2 enter at grade level. The top 4 children will start 1 to 2 years above grade level. Most parents believe children who start behind will catch up within a year or 2, but that is not the reality. Students who are 1 to 3 years behind typically make a year's worth of growth each year, just like all students. But the bad news is they're still 1 to 3 years behind grade level. Closing a learning gap once a child begins school is costly and difficult because the child needs to achieve their normal year of growth plus another year of growth to catch up by even a single level. The data is clear. All children can and will improve, but most will never catch up to their classmates. And this has a lifelong impact. The highest performing students have an 81% chance of going to college and only a 6% chance of dropping out of high school. But the lowest group of students has almost no chance of going to college and a 55% chance of dropping out of high school. This means every child's kindergarten starting point matters. The good news is there is something you can do about it. Communities, schools, caregivers, and parents all have a role to ensure children are ready for school on day one. A child's learning from birth to age 5 determines their kindergarten starting point. It is in those early years that the readiness gap before kindergarten is created, and from the time a child is born until age 5, home is the easiest place to change a child's academic trajectory.
So, the information, like I know the last part seems a little bit drastic, but I think the takeaway is kindergarten readiness really matters. And so, what we did in Hamilton County was and what we do at Chattanooga 2.0 is we got together a cross-sector group of people to talk about what is kindergarten readiness. We talked to kindergarten teachers, we had community engagement people at Hamilton County schools, we had childcare, professional development trainers. We had UTC and Chattanooga State, University of Tennessee at Chattanooga and Chattanooga State. We had social emotional people there. We had the city, county, we had Head Start. We had a lot of people there. And we talked to them about skills that they felt kindergarten students needed to have upon starting school that would lead to future school and life success. You can see a little word cloud here is what it's called. Um, where they talked about problem solving and curiosity and self-regulation. And that's great, but we also wanted to hear directly from from the kindergarten teachers in Hamilton County to ask them, hey, what are you seeing with kindergartners who are coming in the classroom? The kids that are doing great in kindergarten and have no problem moving on to first grade, what did they arrive to kindergarten in August? What skills do they have? And then what is lacking? And so that's what we asked them. And the first day ready skills that they ranked the highest of the we talked to kindergarten teachers in every learning community. I don't know if you're familiar, but Hamilton County Schools breaks the entire county into learning communities. So from Saudi to Harrison, to Eastridge to Lookout Valley and everywhere in Goodewall, everywhere in between. We talked to kindergarten teachers and they ranked social and emotional development, which is really being able to name your emotions. I am mad. Instead of just punching their friend, they can say, I am mad. That hurt my feelings. And stomping, instead of expressing their feelings in a not good, not healthy way in the classroom. Independence and self-help skills, being able to just go to the bathroom by themselves is a big one. Language and communication skills, being able to talk, say their ABCs and communicate to their friends. Pre-K or school experience. So they recognize that if your child is in Hamilton County Schools pre-K, childcare pre-K, or any kind of early learning experience, they are much better off because they're used to the flow of listening to a teacher and doing what the teacher says. The difference is if your children are in childcare, it's a smaller ratio and, maybe 16 kids in the class, maximum of 20. But then when you get to kindergarten, it goes up to 25 and there's only one teacher. So they need, they can't, when every single child is like, Miss Jennifer, Miss Jennifer, Miss Jennifer, she cannot talk to all 25 kids at the same time. So those are really important skills. Eagerness to learn, and then grit and persistence. What we talked to them about what kids are lacking lately. And they talked about fine motor skills as the number one, which was very interesting. So fine motor skills is being able to use your hands to do small things. And they develop that by doing things like playing with Play-Doh. And it's how you begin to hold a pencil and write properly. And they're saying more and more kids don't have those skills because they're playing on a phone or a tablet and they're tapping with the one finger, and they're not doing things anymore like coloring with crayons and playing with Play-Doh. So that's an easy one that we can tackle. Kids play with Play-Doh, develop those fine motor skills. Social skills, persistence and problem solving. So not giving up, and it's some of these things are developmentally appropriate for kids. Kids are gonna have a hard time. Oh my gosh, I didn't get this right on the first time. Nothing's going my way. It's super frustrating. I'm gonna sit here and scream and cry. That's normal. That's normal. But I think continuing to work through a problem that's just slightly challenging is something that they're looking for in kindergartners. Independence, listening and comprehension, and then alphabetic and number knowledge, which we'll talk about. So after all of that, we also talked to some experts around the state, and we said, we took off some of the skills and we honed it down to 5 skills per domain area. And the definition that we came to agreement with all the partners is that children, what does it actually mean to be kindergarten ready? Children will grow into strong learners and adults when we support their brain growth before and after kindergarten. In Hamilton County, we aspire that every rising kindergartner is physically, socially, emotionally, and intellectually prepared for success in kindergarten. To do this, we need families, schools, communities to provide a strong foundation in the following 5 skills areas. And the skills that I'm about to go over will be divided up into these categories. They're called early learning domains: learning skills, emotional and social skills, language skills, math skills, and self-help and movement skills. But before I get into the skills that you all, that we are looking for kindergartners to have when they get to kindergarten, I want to just disclaim that these are skills for 5-year-olds. So children must be 5 years old before starting kindergarten in Hamilton County schools. And so these skills are developmentally appropriate for 4 and 5-year-old children. You should definitely not be expecting them of your 3-year-old. And we also don't want this skills list to be used in a punitive way, like, oh my gosh, you're so dumb, why don't you know these things? They're just room opportunities, and it's kind of a flashlight into where a child is and where we as adults can help them a little bit in that category. So every child is unique, and so is his or her development. They won't move suddenly from one phase of development to the next, and children do not make progress in the same areas at the same time. So just because your sister's kid who's the same age is doing something and yours is not, it's not apples to apples, and you can't compare them that way. Children learn in different ways, but what we can do as parents and caregivers is give children lots of opportunities to grow their brain. So the following skills are some of the skills that kindergarten teachers say will make your child have an easier time during their kindergarten year. But rest assured, your child's kindergarten teacher can meet your child wherever they are developmentally. That doesn't mean, though, that we can't do a few things at home that it's going to make us want to brag about our baby geniuses. So, first and foremost, before we even get to the skills, we have this on the K-Ready website. Sleep is really important. So getting a big full night's sleep is imperative for a healthy foundation. And you can see on this little wheel here, toddlers are getting 11 to 14 hours of sleep per day, preschoolers 10 to 13 total hours per day. And then once you get into kindergarten, kind of 9 to 11. Some of our local health experts said, in kindergarten, 9 is really great. And I will say this number usually shocks some people, and that 11 to 14 hours or 10 to 13 hours, that includes a nap. That is presuming that your child is taking a nap. So if they're getting 9 hours of sleep a night and then taking an hour and a half, nap during the middle of the day, or even a quiet rest period. I know that once your kid turns 4, sometimes they inform you that they're done with naps. And so one of the tools is that they still have to have quiet time, because that's also a good skill to learn too. Another healthy foundation aspect is eating well. So, good nutrition leads to more stable moods, increased ability to pay attention, and improved memory. Going to the recommended number of well visits at your doctor so that your child can be easily screened for developmental delays, and you can also ask questions about their behavior, or just any questions you have for your doctor. And then screenings before they get to kindergarten. So making sure that they've had a hearing screening, a dental screening, and a vision screening at their doctor's office or through your child care provider, before they get to kindergarten. Because what you don't want is for them to get to first grade and then realize that they actually haven't been able to see the board at the front of the classroom the whole time, or turns out they're not saying words correctly because they have a hearing impairment. And then brushing teeth is also really important. So the first category is learning skills. Most of these we can't do that much to foster in the home, but things like following multiple directions. Can you please take this shirt to your room and put it in the dirty clothes? That's to, go to your room, put this in the dirty clothes. Like, can you please go to the bathroom and brush your teeth? Multiple steps to complete a task. Playing with other children in groups or pairs. If they're not in childcare setting, you can be doing this on the playground. Showing curiosity through questioning. You can kind of foster that by asking them questions about books. And then to focusing to complete an activity independently for 5 minutes without transition. So one of the things that they require them to do in kindergarten is to sit in groups and work on a task for up to 15 minutes. So if they can do it for 5 minutes, if you say, sit here and color this page for 5 minutes, they don't know how long 5 minutes is. So you can set a timer or just tell them. But those are the learning skills. Social and emotional skills, emotional and social skills, sorry, sharing, taking turns, helping their friends, giving compliments, and playing well with others, adjusting to changes in routine and environment. So transitions in the classroom, like, okay, now it's time for us to move from this activity to this next one. Sometimes kids can have a hard time with that. Using words to describe their emotions. This is one of the biggest ones that teachers are working on all the way up through high school, because not all kids have been equipped with the skills to be able to express themselves. I am sad, I'm mad, I'm scared, I'm happy. They just sometimes those emotions just they don't know how to use the words, and they just bubble up in the form of a scream, whether it's a happy scream or a not happy scream. Even being able to just describe, I'm hungry, I feel sick. There is a kindergarten ready booklet that I'll talk about at the end, and it has a chart of feelings that you can also use with your children to point to them and help them learn those emotion words. Seeking and accepting guidance from caregivers and teachers, asking for help when you need it, and then knowing what their name is. This one was surprising to us when we talked to kindergarten teachers. They said there are a lot of kids who come in and the teacher asks them their name and they say baby girl. And they said, no, that's what your mom calls you. That's not your name, though. So knowing their name, even, if you write their name on their backpack so they see it, being able to identify their special letter, like my name's Jennifer, my special letter is J. And then, we used to want kids to know their full address, but people move, phone numbers change. So knowing kind of city, state, and then just who your adults are. So what is the name of your adult? Math skills, we talked about this in the Chattanooga in the basics earlier, counting and sequence up to 30, counting objects up to 10, counting 10 objects using one number for each object. So like having a group of literally anything in your house and pointing to it and saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Knowing their colors and recognizing and drawing basic shapes. So can you draw a triangle? Can you draw a circle? Describing positions of objects, up, down, left, right, beside, behind, and top, on front. All of these are things that you can be modeling in everyday conversation with your kids. And the more they hear you use that language, um, the more that they're going to absorb it, because they're sponges, and they're also kind of a copy and paste. They love to mimic you. They're parrots, so to speak. Which you'll know if you've ever said a choice bad word and then they immediately repeated it. Recognizing and repeating simple patterns on a page. There's also an example activity of this in the kindergarten workbook. You all have heard probably in the news all of the rave about literacy and how important it is. Early literacy skills can be built in early childhood before they get to kindergarten. We talked a lot about this stuff already, but listening and responding to questions about stories that are read to them, independently picking up a book and flipping through the pages, understanding core concept that the way a book, not reading a book upside down. When you open a book, turning the pages from right to left, not reading the book backwards. Talking about things like the title of the book is a bonus extra, but really just having print knowledge of like, this is how magazines work, this is how books work. Drawing a picture and telling the story, even if it looks like scribbles to someone else. Being able to say like, Mommy, look at this thing I drew. And you say something like, tell me about it. Recognizing upper and lowercase letters and their sounds, some. It is not a requirement to be able to visually recognize all of them. But they have letter magnets that you can put on the fridge, or really just the alphabet anywhere, pointing them out to children. Again, these are skills for late 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds before they get to kindergarten. But being able to say, even as you're driving down the street, that's a light. Light starts with what letter? Light. That's an L. And then, that's a fun game that you can play in the car, kind of like I Spy, but for literacy. Where is the building? What do you think building starts with? B. Recognizing written name and attempting to write their name. So again, if you have their name, what their actual name is written anywhere in the house, pointing to it, helping them identify what their special letter is. Again, for some reason, special letter seems to resonate with kids. So you can do the special letter of everyone in your household, like grandma's special letter is G. Using or recognizing simple rhymes like bat, cat, ball, tall, and then making up nonsense rhymes, which kids love to do. Foodoo, goodoo, doodle, loodle, they just love it. And then speaking in complete sentences of at least 6 to 8 words that can be understood by a stranger. Self-help and movement skills, moving with control and balance while walking, running, jumping, and climbing. My child is extremely tall because his daddy is tall, and so they look like baby gazelles when they run around. And so we had to work extra hard on their ability to kind of just get down the hallway without falling over. But that's where that explore through movement and play Chattanooga Basic skills and activities come into play. Using pencils and crayons to trace, scissors to cut, using their fingers to control buttons and zippers. Most of that is just so they can work their own jackets when they get in the classroom, because a teacher's not going to sit there and zip up 25 jackets. Using hand-eye coordination to perform simple tasks like putting a puzzle together. Oh, and I forgot to say, scissors is one that usually surprises parents. It surprised me when my oldest was in pre-K, and he said, can I use the scissors? And I said, no, because why would I let you use the scissors? And he said, well, I use scissors in pre-K every day. I said, wait, what? I said, show me. And so we got some of those baby scissors that you have to have in kindergarten. And so practice, like tracing things and cutting them out, is a skill that they need to be able to use their little hands doing. And then going to the bathroom independently. So performing self-help tasks like washing their hands, brushing their teeth, and dressing with adult prompting. It is unrealistic for a child to just know that it's time to brush their teeth. You will most likely forever have to remind them to wash their hands, but that they can do the action of it by themselves. Again, here are some of the brain building Chattanooga basics for no matter the age that you have for a child. Um, and more information can be found on our website. Resources for you if you want to foster all of these skills. There's a Ready Set Kindergarten workbook that is already available for download. We're redesigning it. The activities will be very much the same, but you can find that on the chat2.org/KReady website. There is also PBS Learning Lab, which is linked on the KReady website. They have tons of activities. If your kids ever watch PBS, there's a free app if you use mobile devices with your children. Um, not all day, right? Not as a babysitter, but sometimes you just really need them to use an app, maybe while you're cooking dinner or something. And so the PBS apps are brain building, science backed, and they're phenomenal. The PBS Learning Lab has specific, if there's a skill you're trying to work on with your kid, they did the extra effort at our local PBS station and they matched all of these K-Ready skills to specific episodes of your kid's favorite TV shows that work on those skills, which is great. Then if you have a child with challenging behavior, so like, okay, cool, they've got all of this, but they are aggressive, or they have complete meltdowns and I don't understand. Tennessee Voices is a statewide organization that does free classes called the Positive Parenting classes. I have done one. It was greatly helpful for me to understand how to, kids are different. Your oldest child could be completely different than your youngest child, and had really helped me understand a little bit more my deeply feeling older child and how to go about things with him. So positive parenting class is great. And then there's going to be more videos with simple activities you can do with your child, soon to be on the Chattanooga 2.0 website. I would say it's important to check with your child's doctor early. If you feel that they are not meeting some of these milestones before kindergarten, just talk to your doctor about it and see what they say. There's programs like the Tennessee Early Intervention Services that can give your child free help if they have a true developmental delay. Not being able to do some of the skills on this list, though, is not the end of the world. They're going to go to kindergarten no matter what, and the teacher will meet them where they are with whatever skill set they have. This is just a list of things that you can be working on with your child. Nothing said that they have to have every single one of these skills mastered. So I hope that you are doing a great job as a parent. Parenting is really hard. And you and your child care teacher can help your baby and your child or your 4-year-old or your pre-K master these skills before they get ready for kindergarten. But again, it's not the end of the world if they don't. Early childhood development, their health, family supports, and their education is the foundation for their future learning. And the earlier you start, the better. Now is a great time. Reading to your child every day is highly recommended to kind of grow their brain, and then talking to them as much as you can, and kind of, especially in down moments or on car rides whatsoever. But your job as a parent is so important, and I thank you for listening to me talk to you about the kindergarten ready skills. If you have questions, feel free to send us an email through the website at chat2.org, and I hope you have a great day.